Hello, welcome back to a Read Aloud. Per Ashley's request or suggestion, I am filming myself reading. Yes. Alrighty. We are reading chapter 5 of Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. Here we go. It was a rare, icy cold winter day as Connor, Zion, and I sat outside the office on the sidewalk eating our lunches. "Fruit snack, please?" I said, and Connor shoved one in my mouth. Mom had insisted I wear my old warm boots today, and though I was glad my toes weren't freezing, it was highly inconvenient. I looked at my friends, both shivering as they took bites of their lunches. "This is ridiculous," I said. "We should be eating in the cafeteria today." They looked up at me in alarm. I had to admit that I didn't feel ready to head there myself despite the freezing wind. "We can stay here." They both let out sighs of relief. "So Dad told me he was going to try to get the keys in the office as organized as possible. And then he'll let us try out the ones he can't figure out. I bet one of them goes to the desk." "I wonder what's going to be in there," said Zion. I chewed on a fruit snack and gulped. "Maybe a murder weapon." Zion shivered. "I hope not." "I hope so," I declared. "Then we can figure it into the police, and then they'll get the fingerprints off of it. And then we'll bust the murderer, and then we'll be able to be in the newspaper. And the murderer will be like, 'I could have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you nosy kids.'" That's a Scooby-Doo reference, if you guys didn't know that. Zion and Connor both frowned at me. "I don't want to be in the newspaper," said Zion. "Me neither," said Connor. "And I think you've watched way too much Scooby-Doo." Told you. I scowled. Sometimes those guys were a total buzzkill, and I had watched too much Scooby-Doo. I decided to change the subject. "So, we've had hundreds of artists call about the festival. So many that we've had to turn some away that don't fit with the Stagecoach Pass theme." "Seriously? Like who wants to buy something called a diaper cake?" No thank you. I'll stick with chocolate." Zion nodded. "Yeah, that's gross." "Disgusting," Connor agreed. "We need to find a band now," I said. "Any ideas?" "It shouldn't be too hard to find one," Connor said. "Just look online." Then he raised an eyebrow at me. "Maybe you should perform, Avon." I looked at him in disbelief. "Is that supposed to be a joke?" My earmuffs slipped down a little, and Connor pushed them back on my head. "No," he said. "I think it would be cool." Zion looked at me. "What do you play, Avon?" "The guitar," Connor answered for me. "But she won't play for anyone. I think she might be lying about being able to play." I shoved Connor with my foot. "Shut up." He laughed. "Then play a song at the festival. It would be so cool." "What do you care?" I said. "You're not even coming." Zion's head jerked to Connor. "You're not going?" Connor shrugged. "I don't know. Avon thinks there's going to be like thousands of people there." Zion stared at me. "So?" Connor gaped at Zion. So that's thousands of people to stand around and laugh at me." "They'll be staring at me too," I said, "but I'm still going." "Fine," Connor said. "I tell you what, if you play your guitar, I'll come and watch you." My throat suddenly felt dry. "Juice box, please," I whispered, and Connor obliged. I took a swig and cleared my throat. "I am not performing at the festival. I would never perform in public for anything." "Then I'm not coming," Connor said stubbornly. Darn it, he knew I wouldn't perform, and that was his way out. "Why won't you play for anyone, Avon?" Zion said. I shrugged. "I don't want people watching me up there. Watching the freak is what I wanted to say." "Why not?" Zion asked. "You acted in a play, up on stage in front of people." "That was different. I was in a silly cactus costume. If you didn't know me, you wouldn't have even known I didn't have arms. Doing stuff with my feet in front of a crowd, performing with my feet, that's just different. I'd feel like I was in a circus or something." "That's silly," Zion said. "No one would think of you like that." But I knew he was wrong. Chapter 26. In most places, spring comes around March or April, or even May. Arizona's whole winter is pretty much like springtime with a few winter days scattered throughout. I can't say I was sorry not to have to trudge through snow everywhere I went. Things were really coming together for the festival. Dad found a website that had like 100 country western bands for hire listed on it. We had our pick, and they weren't even very expensive. Mom and I spent an entire day cleaning up the old stage in the closed-down rodeo arena. That was also where the food trucks would park, since we weren't having a rodeo. Connor and I had gone to 2 more support group meetings, and I got the feeling he was actually starting to enjoy them, even though he often gave Dexter the stink eye. I still hadn't found a tarantula, despite going out almost every night with Dad. One day, I was visiting Spaghetti, and I asked Dennis what she knew about tarantulas. Do they bother the other animals? There aren't any tarantulas around here, she told me as she raked the dirt ground. There aren't? But I thought they were all over the desert. I've read about them, and every book I've read distinctly states that they live in the Sonoran Desert. They should be here, but I guess with the city moving in on us like this, they've gone away. I rubbed at Spaghetti's sides with my feet. Yeah, but there's still a good chunk of desert right behind us. I'm always looking for one when I walk out there, but I've never seen one. Denise stopped raking and wiped her brow. I guess there used to be a bunch around here, but they disappeared a while back. Henry said it was around 2004. I stared at her. They disappeared in 2004, but Henry can't remember anything. Nothing recent, Denise agreed, but sometimes he can remember things from the past. In 2004, I repeated to myself. So, looks like we have a mystery. Why did the tarantulas disappear? Yeah, he said the last time anyone saw a live tarantula around here was in 2004. Denise went back to raking the ground. Who knows? Probably just made it up. I decided to go visit Henry. He was sitting in front of the soda shop in one of those rocking chairs. I stood in front of him and asked, When did the tarantulas disappear? In 2004, he said quickly and matter-of-factly. Why do you think that? Because, he said for the first time ever, his eyes looked clear and knowing to me. They left with her. I shivered, and not from the cool breeze. With who? He looked up at me, his eyes once more clouding with confusion. Who what? Who did the tarantulas leave with? He continued giving me his confused look. You want an ice cream, sweetheart? I sighed. No, thank you. I even visited Madame Myrtle to try and figure things out, but she was clueless about tarantulas. She said maybe an exterminator came and took them in 2004. Ridiculous! Connor, Zion, and I spent as much time in the storage building as we could, looking through old pictures and junk. So far, Dad had given us about 15 unlabeled keys to try out on the desk, but none of them had worked. This one's a dud, Connor called, pulling a key out of the drawer and tossing it back into a paper bag. I frowned as I kicked a box in one corner of the shed. It was so old and brittle from the heat that it burst wide open, sending a wave of papers onto the floor. It wasn't necessarily the most orderly way of doing things, but it was a lot easier than Zion's methods. I sheepishly glanced over at him as he carefully removed old tape from a box and pulled the top back, like the Mona Lisa might be inside. Zion shook his head. Avon, he scolded, do you have to make this place look like a tornado ripped through here? She's from Kansas, Connor said, as he tried another key. Tornadoes are in her blood, Connor grunted and then barked. Dud, he pulled the key out. I sifted through the papers on the ground with my toes, trying to make out the faded writing. There were a lot of numbers and words like deduction and revenue and net. I had no idea what any of it meant, but I decided it was all far too boring to be important. Whoa, Zion said, causing Connor and me to stop what we were doing and look at him. He had a book in his hands and was pulling something out from between the pages. Whoa, he said again in a whisper. Connor and I walked through the junk to see what Zion was wooing about. He held up an old black and white photograph for us to see. A photograph of me, with arms, wearing the turquoise necklace, taken in 1973. I'm kind of tempted to just stop the video here and leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but I'll read another chapter. That'd be mean. Chapter 27. I showed my mom the picture that evening. She just stared at it for a long time before whispering, "It could just be a coincidence." She didn't look like she believed her own words. She sat down at our little kitchen table without taking her eyes off of the picture. "She has your face, but it's in black and white. Maybe her hair's a different color." "Don't you think it's strange, though?" I said. She nodded. Then she set the picture down. "It must be a coincidence. I saw this show once about doppelgangers." "What is that?" I asked, sounding dangerous and exciting. "Just people who look alike." So, a doppelganger is someone who, looks exactly like you, but is not necessarily related to you. They just happen to look like you. Okay. "Oh, not that exciting. Anyway," she went on, "there are people who look alike all over the world, literally identical. But they were DNA tested, and they found out that they weren't related at all. Just totally random." "That's weird," I said. "I guess I found my doppeldinger." She smiled. Doppelganger. I thought for a moment. I wonder if Henry knew this girl, and that's why he keeps thinking I'm someone else. She looked from me to the picture and was about to say something when Dad walked in. "Mean Bob has officially left the building," he announced. "And good riddance." "What a relief," Mom said. She got up and handed Dad the picture. "Avon found this in the storage room." Dad stared at the picture for a long time before looking at me. "Odd," he said. "You found this in that desk?" "No, none of those keys worked. We found it stuck in a book, in a box." He didn't say anything more, but I did notice the way that he and Mom looked at each other, and their faces were not very happy. Zion's mom dropped him off at Stagecoach Pass early Saturday morning, and then Mom took us to pick Connor up at his apartment. He was already outside his door when I walked up the concrete path. "Hi. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you that was the end of the chapter." Okay, I'll read one more. "Hi," I said, meeting him in front of the apartment as he turned to lock the door. He struggled with the old lock. "Hey," he followed me out to the car and peeked his head in front of the window. "Hi, Mrs. Green," he said, before getting into the back seat with Zion. "Hi, Connor," Mom said, and pulled away from the curve. "Are you excited for our little adventure?" "I know I am. Anything to get away from Stagecoach Pass right now, and all of the craziness of this festival planning. I seriously need a break from that." Connor gave me a hesitant glance. "Avon and Zion won't tell me where we're going." "Well then," Mom said, "I don't want to ruin the surprise." Connor seemed to relax as we drove through Scottsdale. We spent most of the drive talking about Arizona and how we liked it here. "I'd never seen a saguaro cactus until I moved here," I told them, thinking of the great saguaro at the top of my hill. Well, one that wasn't me anyway. That got us talking about Down and Dirty in Kansas City and the total lameness of Desert Moon over the desert again. It took us a long time to get to the movie theater. As we pulled up in front of it, Connor no longer looked relaxed. I knew he was angry. "Avon, I told you I don't ever want to go to the movies," he said, his eyes blinking rapidly, shoulders shrugging. "Connor, just wait," I said. "I am not going in," he nearly shouted at me. Zion slumped down in his seat and stared at his lap. "Calm down, Connor," Mom said gently. "We have a special surprise for you. You don't have to worry about upsetting any other movie watchers." Connor huffed. "Of course I do. I can't go to the movies." "Yes, you can," Mom said. "Don't you trust us?" Connor glowered at me, his ticking increasing by the moment. "Yes, but nothing," Mom said. "Let's go in. We're seeing the new sci-fi movie you guys want to see so badly." Connor threw his head back against the seat rest and ticked and huffed some more while Mom parked the car. We got out and walked up to the ticket booth, where Mom quietly spoke with the cashier for a minute before buying 4 tickets to the movie. Connor barked a lot as we walked through the lobby. It was early, though, so only a few bystanders were around to gawk at him. People didn't seem to notice me at all when Connor was around. I felt bad for Connor, but I also enjoyed the feeling of being invisible. As we entered the theater, Mom said, "It appears that you have your pick of seats." The theater was completely empty. Connor looked at me and Zion. I smiled at him. Mom had to call a lot of theaters until she found one that was willing to let us have the whole theater to ourselves. "Are you serious?" said Connor. "Well," said Mom, "we couldn't afford to rent out the whole theater, so it was a lot to ask. But the manager here has a son with Tourette's and was really understanding. Plus, he said that the morning show was usually empty, so we were able to work it out." I could see the darkness lift off Connor like a blanket as his eyes lit up, and that alone made everything so worth it. "For real?" he said. "We have the whole theater to ourselves?" "For real, Connor," said Mom. Connor put an arm around Mom's shoulders. "Mrs. Green, you're the coolest." "I know," she said casually. "Now, you three go and find a seat. I'm going to sit way in the back where I like it." "Can we go get some popcorn?" Connor asked. I knew he must have been incredibly happy to ask for food. "Heck yeah," I said. "I want some popcorn and some gummy bears." "Gross," said Zion. "You like those?" "Heck yeah," I said as we walked out of the theater. I love squishy gummy candies. I love hot tamales too. My dad says I like them because they're red like my hair and hot like my temper, I said. Connor grinned. "That's great to know. We'll try to stay on your good side." "Who says you're on it?" I narrowed my eyes at the two of them. "I was just hoping we were." Connor shrugged his shoulders and blinked. But it made me happy to see that. Despite being out in public, his tics weren't completely out of control. I hoped that meant he was starting to feel a little more comfortable. "I bet your parents want to see this movie," Zion said. "Are you kidding? They went to the midnight showing on opening night. They waited in line for like 4 hours, too." He rolled his eyes. "And they wore costumes." Because it was so early, we didn't have to wait in line to get our snacks. Mom had given me some money that morning, and I told Zion to reach his hand inside my purse and get it out. I also let the boys handle the transaction. It was kind of nice not having Mom there making me do everything. Zion paid for our popcorn, sodas, and gummy bears. $20 poorer, we headed back to the theater. Connor and Zion's arms stuffed full of treats. Mine, not so much. I stopped at the bathroom on the way back so I could wash my feet since I knew I'd be dipping them in the popcorn. As we sat waiting for the movie to start, the three of us surreptitiously glanced back at Mom sitting in the very back row. "Do you think she might be hiding something from you?" Connor said in a hushed voice. "And why did she cover herself in napkins?" I giggled. It's warm enough outside to wear short sleeves, so she forgets to bring a sweater when we go places. And it's so cold inside from the AC. She calls the napkins her blankets. I rolled my eyes. It was even more embarrassing that when my great-grandma in Kansas used a flashlight to get around in the movie theater. She does this at restaurants too. At least here, no one can see her. "Do you think she has an idea at all who that girl might be, and she's just not telling you?" Connor asked. I looked back at her, all covered in her blankets, a goofy smile on her face. "No, I don't." She seemed totally surprised. "My parents would tell me if they had any idea of what was going on. She said it's probably just a coincidence." I told them all about doppelgangers. "I still don't buy it," Connor said. What are the odds that you would end up here at this park and find your doppelganger?" "Well," I said, "I found this article online about these two guys who ended up sitting next to each other on a plane. They looked identical. And then there's that one movie star who everyone thinks is a vampire because there's a picture of a man who looks like him from World War I. We lost interest in Mom and plopped back down in our seats. "I know what happened," Connor suddenly declared, making Zion jump in his seat. "There's a portal up on the hill. You go through the portal where you're wearing that necklace you found, and you go back in time to 1973. While you're there, you have your picture taken." Connor looked extremely proud of himself as he barked and said, "Yep, that's it. I've totally solved it. You could run into your grown-up self at any time, so you better be careful. Why do I need to be careful? I asked him. Is my grown-up self dangerous? Clearly, Connor said. He looked at Zion for confirmation. Zion nodded. Yeah, I'm pretty scared of grown-up Avon. Why wouldn't she just come and tell us all of this if she's wandering around somewhere? I mean, you'd remember us, wouldn't you? Connor asked me, like we were talking about what was actually true. Maybe she's dead, Connor said. I smiled at him. Rodeo Clown Mafia? Totally, we giggled. I stuck a piece of popcorn in my mouth with my foot and chewed. I really love this whole theory, especially since the magical portal makes me grow arms. Connor's face fell. Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. You never know what a magical portal might do, Zion said, and Connor's smile returned. I decided to take advantage of Connor's good mood. So are you coming to the festival or what? I asked him. I already told you. I know, I said. I just thought I'd double check. Well, you can stop double checking, Connor said, because the only way I'd go into a crowd like that would be if someone, tied me up and dragged me there. Zion grinned at Connor. Don't give her any ideas. Zion seemed to know me pretty well already. Okay, that is the end of chapter 28. I will read chapter 29 next time. Comment if you have any ideas or suggestions for a background I can put on while I read to you guys next time. Alright, bye-bye.